Okay, Congressman James, thank you so much for joining us and speaking with us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So let's begin with your initial reaction to the strike in Venezuela, the seizure of President Maduro and his wife.
Long overdue. President Trump's efforts to go after narco terrorists, particularly in this case, Nicolás Maduro and his wife, indicted in the United States of America, evading justice, is something that is going to help keep Americans safe. Particularly the drug and human trafficking that's been taking place, enabled by Venezuela's Nicolás Maduro for years now will come to an end. We are looking forward to a peaceful transition to a democratic government to stabilize the Western Hemisphere, North America, and make America safe again.
Well, the president also said that he wanted to make Venezuela great again. Should the American president be in the business of making a foreign country great again? Are we meddling where we shouldn't?
Well, I think that the you can have many things be true at the exact same time. When you bring a narco terrorist to justice for the crimes committed on American citizens, there are also other positive effects, like the jubilation and rejoicing that you see of Venezuelans in their own streets, in their own homes. When you see the interviews that are being conducted by Venezuelans for Venezuelans, when you see on social media people in tears, there are other effects to America expressing leadership based upon 200 years of precedent. The Monroe Doctrine, the Roosevelt corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, is effectively saying that Americans have the right to defend itself, its sovereignty, and also if that has a knock-on effect of making life better for Venezuelans, then I say that we should cheer for that. I think that being able to do two positive things, at least two positive things, goodness, by bringing this narco terrorist to justice is something we should all applaud.
There are a few experts who we've spoken to today, and certainly it seems to be that there's a growing consensus that there could have been a violation here of Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution, which uh, basically means the president cannot act unilaterally in this way. And certainly the War Powers Resolution of 1973, that also means that the president had to notify Congress, give them 48 hours. Is the president in violation of the Constitution by not notifying Congress here?
Well, I think that Mike Lee mentioned specifically that the Secretary of State was in direct contact with him. And I am sure that there are others, numerous senators, of course, advice and consent, as you're well aware of, that they undertook in the preceding moments and, of course, the beginning moments of this. But we were very, very clear initially this was a law enforcement action. This was something that was taken to affect the procurement and capture of a narco terrorist, someone who had I believe it was a $50 million reward offered, something that even Joe Biden increased. This is something that people have talked about for years and years and years that had Democrat support until President Trump came in office less than a year ago. But now all of a sudden that President Trump's in office, this is the worst thing ever. I think the worst thing ever is having open borders and 10 million people flood into our country, jacking our prices up and resulting in hundreds of thousands of Americans dying. I think the worst thing is having a destabilized Western Hemisphere where people feel like it's open season on Americans at home and abroad. I think having a president who has a Soleimani or an al-Baghdadi and now a Nicolás Maduro making examples of people who will hurt and kill Americans, I think that is the direction of people who recognize now that there's a new sheriff in town. And if you F around, you find out. The President of America is placing the security of the American people at his forefront, and that's exactly what the U.S. president should be doing.
Let's talk about international law, specifically the UN Charter Framework, which in Article 2, Section 4, prohibits the use of force here. And this is clearly the use of force by our president, President Donald Trump. And it does threaten the territorial integrity of a sovereign nation. Are there concerns from you or other members of Congress that maybe we're looking at clear violations of international law?
So the Monroe Doctrine was established in 1823, if you want to get down to technicalities of legal international law. This was before Germany was even a country. This was when Prussia was to the north and the Ottoman Empire was to the south. And then you also had the Austrians. This is something that the UN Charter wasn't even considered until over a century later. And you also look at the fact that the United States also has the right to self-defense. If you check that, nothing in the UN Charter trumps the fact that the United States of America has the right to defend itself and our territorial borders. Nicolás Maduro, by enabling the drug trade, was threatening directly the lives of Americans, and the US president has the right and the duty to protect American lives. And we have not signed a death warrant. We have not signed our rights away. And we absolutely, based on 200 years of precedent and common sense, Hillary, have the right to defend ourselves. And putting Nicolás Maduro, giving him a fair trial, when President Trump could have offed that dude last night. He put him in cuffs and is giving him a fair trial, unlike what Nicolás Maduro did to his political enemies. So I think this is protecting our territorial sovereignty. I think is consistent with the rule of law, 200 years of global precedent, and also common sense.
We have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the oil reserves that Venezuela holds. About 303 billion barrels are the estimates. That's 17 to 20% of all oil reserves in the world. The question is this really about oil and controlling Venezuela's oil supply?
But like I said, it could be about a lot of things at the exact same time. When you look at, I mean, I'm sure you would agree, if somebody steals something, then it should be returned to them, right? That's what the president's doing. Expropriation, or essentially governments taking things away from private companies and private individuals, and they shouldn't be doing that, right? We agree. So, what Venezuela did, because of the warm embrace of collectivism, that warm embrace also expropriated or stole from private entities and took it away. And that's wrong. So, what President Trump is doing is by making sure that we are returning peace and stability to the Venezuelan people, is going to allow investment back into the oil sector, which, as the president clearly expressed, would benefit the Venezuelan people, boosting their economy, providing lower energy prices here, and also a mutual benefit of jobs in Venezuela. These are things that will help the Venezuelans. These are things that will help stabilize the Western Hemisphere and things that will lower energy prices and increase affordability for Americans. By allowing that stability in the region, this is going to allow folks who had their stuff stolen from a socialist regime to be able to recover that and to invest it at no cost to the American taxpayer. I think that's a great idea.
I just have two more questions for you. The first is who should be running Venezuela? What sort of
Venezuelans should be running Venezuela. But of course, we can't leave a vacuum to be filled by other narco terrorists or our enemies from abroad who would hurt us. This was a move to stabilize the United States. It was a move to keep Americans safe. This was a move to stabilize North, Central, and South America. And we can't very well go in and then leave a vacuum to be filled by people who would hurt us. It doesn't do us any good to have the best house in a tough neighborhood. We need to make sure that our allies are stable, that our allies are safe, because of course we all want democracy, right? We want to make sure that they get off on the right foot, and we want to make sure that we're holding their hands so that the Venezuelan people can decide for themselves who will lead them into the future, and making sure that it's a pro-democracy. Make sure it's a pro human rights government, unlike what we just witnessed in Venezuela, is going to be a natural benefit for everybody around.
I want to make sure I have this exactly right. So I'm going to cite my notes here. President Trump said, quote, the United States is going to run Venezuela. Is that the right move for
Well,
America?
the Venezuelans should run Venezuela, and that's exactly what I'm sure the president means as well.
All right. And my final question to you is that the president has expressed on multiple occasions that he has wanted to keep the United States out of extended wars and not dabble in this kind of nation building. And yet it appears that that's exactly what we're doing here. How do you justify those comments in line with the actions that were taken late last night? Isn't this
Yeah,
nation building?
yeah, no. Uh, Me and my brothers in arms um, fought in a war that lasted 20 years because Bush and Obama couldn't do what Trump just did in 4 hours. I love the fact that every time I hear about Trump doing something to stand up for American foreign policy and American interests and American lives, the thing is usually over before I hear about it. President Trump, what he's doing right now cannot logically be equated with the 2 decades and trillions of dollars that were spent by bureaucrats and lobbyists and crooked politicians in global wars all over that had very little to do with keeping us protected here on the home front after a while. What President Trump did, I think, was executed spectacularly, and frankly, served as a warning to anybody around the world who would continue to hurt and kill Americans. I think that he has made himself abundantly clear that we are uninterested in long wars, regime change, but that is no excuse to allow narco terrorists to continue to kill Americans. I applaud the president, and I especially applaud the brave men and women who executed this mission so spectacularly. God bless you all. Happy New Year, and thank you all for your service.
All right, Congressman, I always want to open it up to anything else that you may want to add here that you feel is important for the American people to know. But before that, you don't expect this to be a protracted conflict that the United States is involved in for decades?
No, I do not expect this to be a protracted conflict. Nobody wants that. And frankly, I serve with enough people in Congress who fought a forever war, essentially. And we're going to make sure that we're continuing to work with the administration. The administration officials have said they don't want a forever long war, but also the alternative is not to leave a vacuum to be filled by other narco terrorists or our opponents from across the world. That is not a solution either. So we will work hand in hand so the Venezuelans can self-determine with our assistance, and we will stabilize the region, and we will keep America safe.
All right, Congressman John James, I thank you so much. Happy New Year to you, sir. And we appreciate your candor and taking some time to speak with us.
Thank you, Larry. God bless. Bye bye.
You too. Bye bye.